This Polish writer got rid of a man by throwing him into a river, but it took 8 years before the police could connect the dots and find the criminal. What was the key that helped solve the mystery? In December 2000, near Wrocław, Poland, the body of a man was found floating lifeless in the Odor River. It definitely wasn't an accident. He was tied up and the rope was knotted around his neck. That detail would become especially important in the case's future. But at that time, authorities had no clue. They found no evidence that could lead to a suspect. The man had no debts or known enemies who could have attacked him. So the case was filed away and forgotten for 3 years, until a curious cop decided to solve the mystery. In 2003, Detective Jacek Wroblewski received an anonymous tip. A novel published by Christian Bala, a local author, could help him solve the case. The detective was very intrigued and decided to give the book a chance, which turned out to be a real breakthrough. At the same time, he was reconstructing the whole sequence of events before the murder and realized the victim's cell phone had not been recovered. The detective pulled the thread and found out that just 4 days after the man disappeared, his phone was bought on a website by a user called Chris B. And that's when everything clicked. Chris B was actually Christian Bala, the author of the book with the clues. The detective began reading it carefully again, and after years, managed to find the mastermind. The novel tells the story of a passionate and wild man named Chris. At one point, he takes his girlfriend's life by tying a rope around her neck and stabbing her with a balda, which he later sells online. The coincidences were undeniable. The protagonist's name, the rope, the sale of the item on the internet. Christian used the murder he committed in real life in his novel. The author was subjected to a first trial, and there was no way to incriminate him. He claimed not to know the victim. But Stasia, the writer's ex-wife, wanted to testify after reading the novel. She met Christian's victim at a nightclub, and later they went on a date. But even though Stasia and the writer were separated, he threw a scene and confessed he had been spying on her. In other words, Christian knew who his ex-wife's date was, and he would have gotten rid of him out of a furious, jealous rage. It was never proven if the writer was the perpetrator of the murder, but he was convicted as the mastermind, and in 2008 he was sentenced to 25 years in prison. Always be eager to know more plus.